Welcome to Product Momentum, a community of thought leaders and learners coming together to celebrate the product people who are shaping our way ahead. Inspired by our most pressing questions and insightful guests, we'll explore the challenges you face and offer practical, hands-on guidance your team can implement today. This is Product Momentum. Here are your hosts, Sean Flaherty and Sean Murray.
Sean, what a great episode with Dan Chuparkoff.
That was awesome. He brings this kind of huge topic of AI and makes it down to earth and something that we can consume and do something with.
Yeah, I always say all business value comes from making sense of contrast, like making things so that you can see the differences, and turning complex issues into something that we can actually work with. That's, I think, what he did a great job of.
Yeah. And don't use the word AI anymore, right?
It's an umbrella term. It's reached that status.
Right.
We got to break it down and make it useful and not throw it around as a buzzword. I really love that conversation.
Yeah. It's moving so fast. It's already an umbrella term.
That's right.
Right.
Let's get after it, Sean.
Let's do it. All right. Dan Chuparkoff is a keynote speaker on innovation and the future of teams, formerly a technology leader at Google, McKinsey, Atlassian, and more. He's invested 60,000 hours over 3 decades on the ground reinventing real teams. He's seen thousands of ideas, experiments, failures, and successes on teams of every shape and size. He's created a formula for surviving in the future of work. Dan's here at Industry, helping product people understand how to harness the power of AI and separate the hype from the helpful. Dan, thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. Sean, thanks for having me. I'm excited for the conversation today. Industry is one of my favorite times of the year, and it's pretty cool to be featured here this year.
Yeah, it's awesome. So can you talk us quickly through that concept of separating the hype from the helpful? What are some practical strategies for product teams doing that when it comes to AI?
Yeah, I think especially for product teams, because we're so forward looking, we're constantly thinking about the 1 year from now, 2 years from now roadmap. It gets easy to keep thinking about that future forward looking thing when you talk about something new like AI. Mm-hmm. Maybe AGI works at some point in the future. Maybe AGI is super helpful, artificial general intelligence for any new listeners. Maybe that's useful, but it's not useful right now. You can't go back to your office and use AGI to solve real problems. Okay. But you can use note-taking AI tools or translation AI tools. And so I help people sort of create 2 buckets where, the useful stuff that you could use next week and the theoretical stuff that might come 2 years now, 5 years from now, 8 years from now.
Okay. Stuff to be thinking about in the future. Yeah. It occurs to me that, and I say this a lot, but product leaders are inventing the future. We are building tools and we're building products that don't exist yet.
Right.
And AI is kind of one of those things. We know it's coming. Right. We don't know exactly when it's going to have a huge impact on our jobs and our work and the products that we build, but we know it's coming. Right. So how do we get in front of it?
I think the first thing is just start trying, right? You start using something by starting to use something. Right. So even if you're not completely reinventing your product from the ground up, go into ChatGPT or Claude a little bit and ask it some questions. See what it's good at, what it's not good at, and play around with it. Explore what its boundaries are.
All right. So, and I agree with this, by the way. So one of my academic heroes is a guy named Robert Sapolsky.
Yep.
Stanford University professor. He says evolution isn't exactly what we think it is, right?
Right.
The zebra that survives is the one that runs fastest when the environment changes.
Right.
And this is something that's happening in all of our environments.
Yeah.
And the environment is changing at a rapid rate. And the only way, to your point, to be ready for it is to experiment, to try it, stay with it.
Right.
Don't let it pass you by,
Yeah, exactly. I talk to a lot of teams that aren't comfortable with the privacy policy of something like ChatGPT yet, so they're not using it. Sometimes it's even blocked. For those teams, I encourage them to just use the free version or the $20 version at your house and ask it what to make for dinner tonight, right? Start using the tool a little bit. Yeah. Before it matters, before it's critical, before it's like a life or death situation for your organization and your customers.
Absolutely. Simple example. I just took a trip to Greece and planning the trip to Greece, not knowing anything about the islands. It was incredible, time saver to help find those pointers and just probably saved me 10 hours of trip planning.
Right.
Sean's kids are out of the house, so I used it for creating T-ball practice plans. So I would just a different application,
right.
Different application.
Yeah. No.
So how do we, I know that we can experiment to understand what happens now.
Yep.
How do we handle that kind of like rapidly changing capability? Like, it seems like every 3 months there's a new version of an LLM out that can do the next great thing. So how do we stay on top of that growth?
I think the first thing is, as product managers, we're doing that to our users all the time, right? Every month there's a new blog post about your new feature, and you expect them to read every single post and catch up every quarter and download the new release as soon as it's there. And so first, take a little bit of your own medicine, right? You've got to, it's keeping up with new technology is a full-time job, right? You've got to pay attention. You've got to keep looking every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks, whatever the right cadence is for you. You've got to deliberately prioritize that learning. One of the things at Google, when we were there, we had 20% time at Google, right? And one of the things about 20% time is not that you should get to spend every Friday working on whatever you want. It's that you need 20% of your time to play around with new technologies so that you're ready for them in the future when they're critical. And that's, I think, the most important thing I took from people.
For those organizations that don't have that playtime built in, playtime probably the wrong word.
Yeah.
I'll think of a better one.
I like that word, actually.
Okay. Well, how do we convince, whoever's above us, this is the right thing, this is the right way for us to be spending our time, and how we're going to get value out of it? How do we have that hard conversation of like,
that is a hard question. One of the things, I'll tell you an experiment that I tried, because I know that if I just had a little bit of time, I could learn some things that would change our business, right? And so instead of asking for permission, because I tried that a bunch of times and it's hard, right? I told my boss I was going on vacation. I told my boss, hey, I'm going to Florida for a week. I'll be back in 10 days. And then I didn't go. I spent the whole week watching YouTube videos. I rewrote our strategy for next year. I spent 5 days with no meetings. I didn't look at chat. My out of office assistant was on. And I came back the following Monday and I said, hey, boss, I didn't go to Florida. And she was like, what? And I said, yeah, can I have the vacation days back? And she's like, no. And I said, but look at what I did. I learned about this new tool that we've been wanting to learn forever. I rewrote our strategy and our deck for how we're going to pitch it to our customers. And it was amazing. She's like, oh, wow, that's really great. And when she saw the results, then prioritizing that again in the future was easy.
Okay.
Right. So do small experiments and make those experiments a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And don't try to convince people that your theory is the right theory. Convince them that the results that you just got are worth amplifying.
Okay. Right. Sean, I'm going to go to Florida for 10 days, by the way. I'm just letting you know right after this.
We're going to change the subject. So the most rewarding work is the work that you do when it feels like you're playing. Like, that's intrinsic motivation is defined by that. Like, that's all the social science has shown that when you have some autonomous control over your day-to-day activities, you are more creative. And
right.
I fundamentally believe that this environment, like this product management environment, requires a tremendous amount of autonomy.
Yeah.
Which means we got to set good goals and know where we're going. And we have to be working towards those goals, but we got to give people the space to grow and learn. That's where creativity comes from.
Right.
So they're tightly intertwined.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I think even outside of product management, a lot of teams probably don't have enough autonomy, right, to get their own work done. That's why remote work is so hard, because everybody has to tell everybody else what they're doing all the time.
And it's like you spend a lot more, it feels like you're spending more time tracking and proving that you're adding value than you are actually doing work, right?
Right. And I used to work on Jira, so I know the value of tracking, and that's important.
Yeah.
But also when you're spending more time sharing the information than you're actually spending doing the actual work, maybe you should take a look at that.
The work around the work.
Yeah.
Right now, I know a lot of teams want to adopt AI. What are teams doing today to kind of mitigate the costs of either mitigates the costs of starting up an AI, either some of that training time or like the risks that come with it? What are strategies that teams are using today?
I think the first thing is trying small experiments. Like we're in the learning phase with AI right now. I would strongly recommend against people just ripping the covers out of everything they built and building again with an AI foundation, because it's changing so fast. We don't even know what 6 months from now will look like. Mm-hmm. And so starting slow, starting smaller, trying with some of the information that's less critical, like not your employee PII or your customer PII or your health data, or like try it just with your basic status report sharing. Like try to get an AI note taker built into your meeting tool and use that to try to accelerate the efficiency of your communication. Like that's, I think, the thing that people should start with.
Okay.
Cause people are spending 68% of their time sharing information anyway. Most knowledge workers, according to 2 different studies from different organizations, 68% is a lot of time. If you can make that 1% better, that's a huge win. It's like hiring 4 more people for your team.
Big. I've recently used AI Perplexity as the tool that I'm using right now to do competitive analysis. Right. Because you actually aren't sharing any information that's not publicly available.
Right.
I don't need to divulge anything. I just want you to scrape what's on the website.
What's already there.
Right? Go to YouTube and use those videos to help me compare. Right.
Yeah. I think that's a great example. The kind of stuff where you're trying to research and aggregate large amounts of information that's already out there. I think where that gets a little bit dangerous is, if you really only have 2 main competitors and those competitors only have a website each, and you're trying to draw inferences from a very small amount of text, then, you'll get hallucination. Yeah. Right. And so it's much better if you're looking at, 20,000 customer service tickets over the last 10 years of your life. And, that kind of stuff is a little bit better.
Yeah. The workshop that John Haggerty had us do a few months ago was centered around, it was just, it was like 40,000 app reviews.
Right.
And that was okay, what are the insights that I need to learn?
That's the kind of work that it's just not efficient to do yourself. You need to have help.
Yeah. It's super hard. And I think what happens is people as product managers, you go into some of the tickets and you scan for stuff that's anecdotally interesting, or you look at whatever, your Google Analytics or your Heap or whatever you're using, and you just sort of spot check weird stuff. Yeah. But, AI will help us make sense of data like that at much more scale.
Yeah. At scale, for sure. Right. One of the things we do as product leaders, all economic value is created through contrast. It's like when you take a complex problem and you make it easy. You make it easy to understand. When I asked you the question before the interview here, what's one question you'd love me to ask? You said, hey, I'd like to explain why I do this work. So have a shot at that.
Yeah. Awesome. That's a hard thing. Cause I quit Google last September. So it's a year from the recording, since I quit, and I just do this. I speak at conferences. I talk on podcasts. I'm just trying to help people. And some people are like, why would you throw away Google stock options? Right. And try to work for yourself as a sort of a consultant that never does consulting. And the reason is because I learned everything I know at conferences like this. Like everything I learned, 28 years ago from the guy that wrote the book Crossing the Chasm, or, 18 years ago, I saw Eric Ries when the Lead Startup first came out, and those guys changed my life. They taught me how to make products in a better way. And I went from, working on some crappy product for a newspaper company to working as a leader at Google on Android. That's an amazing jump. And it's because of speakers like this that gave back to the community. So I try to do that as much as I can.
That's awesome.
So taking complex ideas and making them accessible to people so they can change their own careers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So from your talk, what's one of the key complex ideas that you're making simple for people?
I think the number one most important thing is, don't say AI so much. Right? AI's
become a buzzword.
It's an umbrella term, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it means machine learning from 28 years ago, and sometimes it means a chatbot on your website. If you're talking about machine learning from 28 years ago, say that. And if you're talking about a chatbot on your website, say that. right? Sure. Somebody in some strategy wants you to say we're doing AI stuff, but like to your users, that sort of hyperbole, that umbrella term is going to confuse them. I like to say AI is a piñata and there's all this cool stuff inside, but no one's really sure what's in there. So we're all just whacking at it with a stick. That's confusing for people. And so get as specific as you can, as quickly as you can.
It reminds me of the famous Steve Jobs quote about, you have to start with your customers and work backwards from what they need.
Right,
you can't start with the technology and then go find someone to sell it to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And as product managers, we're generally better than that than others. Like we talk about problems that we're trying to solve and outcomes and stuff like that. Teams in other industries like finance and HR and travel management, like it's just way harder for them. So at least recognizing in the product management world, you're already doing a pretty good job.
Yeah. I think it's an exciting time. Like we're about to go through another one of those transformations. There's been several. I've been in the software business since the beginning of the internet. And I've watched some of these transitions. Like I'll never forget the day ASP came out, and I was like, "Whoa, you can put a database on that internet thing?
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to change the world."
Yeah.
And I think AI is one of these transition points. Like it's spectacular. It made a huge impact on my life already, and I think if we don't figure out how to take advantage of it, we're in trouble.
Right. I mean, we will. Like in 5 years, when we look back at the AI assistant that's giving us suggestions all day long, that's going to be as ubiquitous as the mobile phone in our pocket. It's it's coming. People are adopting it faster than I expected them to, and that's pretty great.
It's already an umbrella term. It's even advanced. It's even advanced its progress to umbrella term.
Yeah,
right?
That's good.
Awesome. What are some other key takeaways from your talk that you want people to have today?
I think the other thing is we will put AI features in our products, and that will be great. We will use AI research assistants to get information and summarize it faster. But the real efficiency that I think people will get is just from collaborating faster.
Okay.
Right. Every day teams all over the world are having conversations with each other in a room or on Zoom, and people are writing notes in a paper book.
Yeah.
And never looking at it again. They have the same conversations over and over again. A new person joins the team and they missed everything that was ever been said. AI is going to make that go away. You're going to have an organizational conversation memory. And that's going to be way more useful than, a chat bot on your website.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would agree. Okay. So what are you reading? What do you recommend to our audience?
Right now I am writing a book. So fantastic. I am deliberately not reading anybody else's book so that I don't accidentally, let that influence the thoughts. My book will be out sometime maybe next March or so. But
you don't believe in Picasso's adage about good artists borrowing and great artists stealing?
I would like to at least take a small hiatus. I've read a lot of books already, and we'll learn from them. And they're great. There are lots of great books. Marty Kagan's books are redefining the industry. Christina Wadke is an amazing writer. And then, I advise people, reading outside of the product world too. Just learn from general business and collaboration and leadership. Those are important.
Great. Awesome. Cool.
Dan, how do you define innovation? That's a question we ask all our guests, just because I find the differences fascinating.
Yeah. So, earlier you mentioned that the way zebras evolve is not by being the fastest runner, but by running a little bit faster than the other zebras. Whatever your organization does, if you could just pick one most important customer metric, like whatever that is, whatever your company does, if you're making that metric a little bit better, then you're innovating. That's the only thing that matters. Everything else you do is in service of moving that one most important customer.
For customers. Yeah, I love that. So really that hyper focus on the customer, the thing that moves the customer relationship in some way. Get the customers a little bit further up that relationship ladder and you're winning.
Right.
That's the way it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, this
Dan.
was awesome.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to work with you. It's been great at Industry so far, and I can't wait for the other day and a half. Thanks for pulling me aside, and sorry about the background noise.
Yeah, no, it's good.
We can operate anywhere. We have no fear.
Awesome. Thanks guys.
Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Well, that's it for today. In line with our goals of transparency and listening, we really want to hear from you. Sean and I are committed to reading every piece of feedback that we get, so please leave a comment or a rating wherever you're listening to this podcast. Not only does it help us continue to improve, but it also helps the show climb up the rankings so that we can help other listeners move, touch, and inspire the world just like you're doing. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next episode.